Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Whiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Whiz, and welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in 15 minutes or less. Today, our guest is Kat Stancic, and she's the founder of Action Incubator, a sought-after speaker and the best-selling author of 7 Principles for a More Productive and Fulfilling Life. She's known for her tough love approach that gets clients into focused action so that they can get out of overwhelm and create big results with significantly less effort. She works with high-achieving entrepreneurs who want to stop focusing on the glorified 6- and 7-figure marks and finally enjoy a profitable and balanced business. Welcome, Kat. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, it's definitely our pleasure. And to begin with, can you share a personal or business challenge that you had to overcome in order to achieve your level of success?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that a lot of people go through as they're on their entrepreneurial evolution, right, and their journey is figuring out who they are. Right. So a lot of things that we were taught was the things that make us different are the things that we need to change because we need to conform. Right. So everybody needs to be the same way, or you have to be like the popular kid. And I was not the popular kid in high school or grade school or any time. But what I really learned to do was step into my own, using those things that made me unique and different and quirky, and actually leverage them as part of helping me stand out from the sea of faces. And so one of the biggest struggles I had was not being a mini version of whoever it was that I was learning from, right? So you go and you invest and you have different mentors and things like that. And you're like, oh, I really like that system. I like how they got results. And then you implement that in your business as part of your process, but you're not putting your own spin on it, right? You're not really making it about how you achieve success and really owning that. So that's the biggest struggle that I think not only myself, but that I see a lot of my clients and a lot of entrepreneurs go through, which is how to stand out and be different and be okay with it.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. And that's what people are craving, is for real, unique, authentic people that are standing out and being different.
Yeah, because then you're like, oh, she went through that. Like, I can totally relate. Let me see what she's about, because she knows my pain. She knows my struggle, and she's on the other side of it. Mm-hmm. And that's what people want, is to have someone who can help kind of Sherpa them, right? And say, hey, I've already walked this path and I can show you the pitfalls to avoid. And that's why you invest, right? So that you don't have to learn those mistakes on your own. I
always say, whenever I'm teaching people how to stand out from the crowd, I always go, the question that I've never heard anybody else say this, but the question I always have them ask themselves is, what do other people teach that drives you bonkers? Because this is what's going to set you apart, because you have a different viewpoint on it.
Exactly. That polarizing concept, I mean, it's gold, right? So, take it, own it, and also give yourself permission to allow it to change, right? As you evolve in your business, as you change and learn things, so will your perspective and so will the things that you talk about. So you could even look back, and I look back 5 years ago and be like, oh yeah, and I didn't know what I was talking about back then, right? Because I've learned so much since then. But at that moment, at that time, it was valuable information. But because I've gone further along the path, I'm able to say, oh, I could have avoided some pitfalls right there.
Let alone 5 years ago, man, I'm a different person today than a year ago.
A different person than yesterday.
And Kat, you have something you call action deficit disorder. So what is that, and how can somebody switch it off to get more work done?
Yeah. So one of the biggest pitfalls that entrepreneurs, along with increasing their visibility, because that's one that I see a lot of people not doing, is really focusing on the right actions, right? So and I include myself in it too, because everybody gets distracted by the shiny ball syndrome, right? The movie Up, squirrel, right? And you just like, oh, I can go do that. And this makes me feel busy and productive. But at the end of the day, what did you actually accomplish? And that's part of what I work with my clients on, is identifying what the real money generating activities are. Because yes, it is about impact. Yes, it is about influence, but it's also about income. right? And so what actions are you taking every single day, right, to get you closer to that revenue goal that you're wanting to achieve? Because that's the goal that you think and believe will help set you free as it relates to money and time.
Exactly. And so talking about goals and stuff, what's the best way to stay focused on your goals and really start ignoring, every shiny object syndrome out there?
It's really boring. and it's oftentimes that's what happens, is that the answers are really simple, but people want to make them complicated. So the simple, direct, and easiest way to make sure you're accomplishing your goals is to measure them. What are the key performance indicators, right? And this goes back to my corporate experience and my MBA and all this other stuff, right? It's actually the stuff I learned and validated was, how are you measuring your progress? It's not just I want to make $200,000 this year. And you get to December 31st and you're like, well, damn, I didn't make $200,000 this year, right? Mm-hmm. What are the things that will help you get there? And what are the measurements by which you know that you're on track? I like to break things down in 90-day increments, because then you get more done in a year than just having this arbitrary goal that's way out there that you don't start really trying to hit. Because in September, right, back to school, everybody's like, hey, did you hit your goals? And you're like, no, I didn't. Well, what if you did that more sooner, right, in the year? So you did it in April, and then you did it in July, and then you did it in, I'm not even having the quarters right, but having those 90-day increments and key measurable components by which you know how many leads are you generating, how many calls are you having, how many offers are you making, and how many clients are you closing. Those are the key performance indicators that will align to you taking action as it relates to the money generating activities in your business.
Exactly. And that is so key, is the actions. We look at the goal, but whenever you break it down into the little steps, like you can make, if you're making 5 sales calls every day, you can measure that, you can track that, you can figure out what your ROI is on it, and then you can tweak it.
Yep.
To meet your goals. And so many people, they think all I need to do is have this big goal without thinking, what activities can I do each day to meet them?
Yeah. I mean, and one of the biggest hot topics, which is, all you need is a funnel, right? And I love funnels and they're great and fantastic, but to have a successful funnel, to have a successful insert whatever it is you want, takes testing. It takes time. It takes commitment. You have to understand what words will convert better, what headlines will have people open that email. It's not just to build a funnel and they will come. Like, a lot of action goes into driving traffic, right? And those are the two pieces of business: is you have traffic on one side and offer on the other. And if you're not getting the monetary results, your offer either sucks, which for the most part, it's not usually that, it just needs some tweaking, or your traffic, which completely relates to visibility, isn't where it needs to be, right? Yeah. So traffic leads to the offer, which leads to clients. Right. It's not complicated.
and something that I always I'd love to throw in here too is, years ago, my first really was my first website. One of my first websites, I was just doing affiliate marketing. This was back in 2007. And I created this elaborate website that was really cool. And I was getting over 30,000 visitors a month to it. So I was getting high traffic.
Yeah.
And I had 0 sales. And that's because I was talking to everyone. And when you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. Mm-hmm. There was no focus. And people didn't know what I stood for. They liked my website, but they were confused by all the different offers. And right. And I had a horrible bounce rate too. I mean, I think my bounce rate was like 91%.
Well, they were finding you. And so, but that's the thing, is that these metrics, right? And so because you know the metrics, you know where the problem is. And so you can fix it. But if, let's say, you didn't track any of that, let's say you didn't have any Google Analytics on your website, right? How do you know what to fix and what to put your attention to? Ego is going to tell you one thing. They're going to say, oh, just throw more money at Facebook ads, right? And that's not what's going to solve the problem. When you have those key performance indicators in place and you know what you're tracking, then you can easily see, okay, I'm not making the money I want. Well, I only have 2 leads and I've had 1 call in the last 6 months. Right? Like, I'm going to look to see how I can generate more leads. And then once I've got that process mastered, right? That's what you were talking about earlier, which was keeping it simple and keeping it focused, right? So that niching down helps with that, which is you have to master one component at a time. First generate those leads, then understand how you get those those prospects onto a phone call. I'm specifically talking about high ticket sales, but you can do low ticket sales by taking the phone call out of it, but driving them to an opt-in or whatever. But having all that, testing it, measuring it, and seeing how you can increase the percentages, it's not this weird magical thing that you can't figure out. It's literally a skill, and you just have to practice it.
You don't know. That's why there's coaches out there to teach people. You, me, millions of other coaches, right?
I mean, think about anybody that you admire.
Right.
They had coaches, they had a mentor, they had some kind of support system in place. And what did they do? They practice. The best speakers in the world practice, practice, practice. The best athletes in the world practice, practice, practice. Even when it looks like they've mastered it, they keep practicing because you can always improve.
Exactly. And too, something I want to point out is I see a lot of people doing this, which I find so sad, is they'll pour their heart and soul into something, and they'll create, a product, an opt-in gift or something, and say, oh, well, nobody's interested in that. It must not be working. This must not be what I'm supposed to do. So then they move on to something else, not focusing on the one thing, giving it a chance to work.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's looking at yourself too and saying, how am I showing up? Right. Like this is that, there's the consultant side of me, right. Which is all the measurements and the KPIs and all that, how to do this. Here's the strategy kind of stuff. And then there's the coaching side, which is why I'm like a superpower because I mesh both worlds together. And in that place, it's, are you really doing the thing that you're uniquely brilliant at? Right. Or are you doing the thing that you think people will buy? There's a difference. Because what you're uniquely brilliant at, people will pay for, right? So how are you showing up? Are you resenting the work that you're doing? And this happens at every single level. It doesn't matter whether you're earning $10 per year or you're earning $1 million a year. People can get sidetracked because we all have those gremlins in our head, the shoulds, right? That are telling us different things and what is really aligned with the heart and the mind.
Exactly.
So you want to make sure that you're checking in with yourself. And that's why it's nice to have that outside perspective because it's hard to see the picture from the frame.
So, Kat, how can one channel their focus into income generating tasks so that they can attract more clients with ease?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is consistency. Right. So people get on these, I'm going to do a 30-day video challenge and they do it for maybe 10, maybe they do the whole 30 days and then they're done. Right. And then they're like, okay, I don't have to do it anymore. Or I'm going to create this huge content plan and I'm going to go out and I'm going to share all this stuff and they don't actually do it. Right. So what happens is that you feel like you've accomplished something, but you haven't actually followed all the way through to actually achieving your goal, right? So look at all the things that you started but didn't necessarily finish. The difference is how committed are you to actually accomplishing your goal? Because maybe you're not. Maybe your heart's not in it. And then you just need to get okay with that. You need to be consistent in doing it, right? And you need to give it time. Like, I wrote a blog post about this the other day, which is how many people go to the gym, work out once and expect to be like super cut and buff.
Right.
Your expectation is relatively, normal when it comes to working out. You have to go on a consistent basis and work the different muscles and things like that. It's the same thing in business. When you're doing something new, when you're doing something that you haven't necessarily mastered yet, it's about doing it over and over and failing fast and failing forward. Right? Like I'm not where I'm at because I decided that I was going to try something once and say, hey, I'm an expert, right? Because people can call my bluff on that right away. It's about doing it over and over again, getting those results that I can share about what my clients have achieved to prove to people I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And I love the analogy, even like people don't expect to go to the gym and get buff overnight. But especially in business, so many people think, oh, it's so easy. I just hop online. I have a business and I'm going to make lots of money.
Saw my face.
It's not that easy. It's interesting. I can't tell you, and it's probably you too, how many people have said, oh, how can I do what you're doing? And so I'll tell them like the first step and they never take it.
Because it wasn't easy enough for them.
Exactly.
And it's like,
or some of them wanted me to do it for them, but I was like, that's not happening.
Right. And fine, but you've got two assets available to you, right? You've got time or money.
Right.
right? So if you're saying, you see these posts all the time. I'm looking for this amazing person who can do these 50 million unique different things, but they have to be cheap.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't work for cheap if you had those skill sets, right? Like, understand that you get what you pay for and you get what you invest your time in. You have to have a certain level of mastery in the foundational components, no matter what level of business is in. Because here's the thing. If something happens, Facebook starting to fade out a little bit, right? Like, they're data mongers. Like, they're selling all our information. Instagram's becoming even hotter. LinkedIn is becoming super hot right now in terms of getting clients and stuff like that. But if you're so stuck, right, on trying to do things on the cheap and not investing the time in mastering those basic skill sets, if something happens to the platform you've decided to master, what are you going to fall back on? Right. How are you going to create income? I mean, that's why part of my process is recession proof. Right? So how many people can say you have a recession-proof process? Because if you're able to build relationships, if you're able to clearly communicate the value that you have and be able to solve a problem and be able to identify how you can help somebody, if you can, and be really integritous about it, then you're always going to be able to find clients and you're always going to be able to generate multiple six figures in your business.
Exactly. And one thing that I always encourage people to do, just talking about times, is, video is really hot now and it's only expected to get more hot. Oh, yeah. And when people are afraid to be on camera, this is a part of really that makes the human connection. It helps build the relationship. It's a lot easier to build a relationship when somebody can see you versus whenever they're just reading everything about you. And so, I always tell people, hey, you have to start practicing. I swear, I probably made 100 videos before I showed any of them online because I was like frozen. I would go, my name is Cindy. It's horrible, but I practiced. And so any skill set you want to have for your business, you can practice it and you can start honing the skills. We all had to start there. None of us just came out of the womb being having all the skill sets we need to build a successful business.
Exactly. And here's the thing is even people who might seem to have an advantage, right? Sometimes they take it for granted. And so the person who doesn't have that advantage is probably going to work harder and be more dedicated to mastering that skill set because they don't have something to fall back on, right? I know a master speaker who practices his speeches 500 times. Wow. He's a master speaker and speaks in front of like thousands of people, right? 500 times because he wants to make sure he hits the beats at the right time and the timing is important and things like that. And then you've got other people who go on stage and they just wing it. You think you can tell a difference?
Right. And there's two different styles. I mean, some of the people that go on stage and wing it, if they know their material good enough, but they're just channeling.
But that's the key is they know their material, right?
Yeah, that's always the key. They have to know their material. I mean, I know like in Toastmasters, your first speech is always about yourself because you know yourself.
Exactly. I mean, and that's kind of one of the biggest pieces to visibility and success also. And no matter what, creating connections, I mean, between what we do and what anybody does is really knowing who you are and standing in that and not trying to be something that you're not. Right. And, especially women get triggered by that enoughness, right? Like as they are, who they are, what level of education you have isn't enough. And so therefore they overcompensate and that comes off as sleazy and not really real and tangible, right? So you see the Facebook facade, right? Of like, here's my perfect life. And if I turn my camera around right now, my desk is not in a place where I would want to show it, right?
Mine too.
But, that vulnerability that like, hey, you know what? This is how I really am. And this is how sometimes I'm great and sometimes I suck. That know, like, and trust factor helps, is exponentially fast tracked because people can relate to who you are as a person. Because at the end of the day, people buy from people. They don't buy from the guy. I mean, and some people do because they're schmucks, but they buy from the guy with the guns and the boobs and the cars that are surrounded about him, right? But be your own thing because someone else has already mastered the boobs, cars, and beer, commercial.
Yeah, exactly. Always be yourself. And I know, Kat, we could talk about this all day, but let's move forward because of time. Can you share a strategy that our listeners can implement in 15 minutes or less to grow their business?
Yes. So the strategy that I use across all platforms, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, in person, whatever it is all about relationships. Think about the people you already know. In all likelihood, them or someone they know is ready to buy from you. But how are you following up? How are you staying connected? How are you adding value on a consistent basis so that they know that you could potentially solve their problem? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of leads me a little bit into what I want to offer people as a free gift, is to be able to help them implement that strategy faster by providing them swipe copy and identifying exactly who you can follow up with in order to monetize that super quick.
That sounds absolutely great. And the name of your free gift is, and if you want to talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so it's 3 steps to maximize your follow-ups. And maybe not the sexiest title, but it'll be super sexy when it increases your bottom line. So essentially what it is it's 3 steps to identify why you want to be able to follow up with people. Who exactly, by being able to check off, I provide over 15 different places for you to be able to identify people to follow up with, and as 5 different email examples for you to be able to leverage to swipe and deploy so that you can start creating follow-ups and connections with people that could be buyers, could have been buyers, or maybe want to be buyers.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Thank you. And so to our listeners, you want to head on over to bizsuccessin15.com/cat, C-A-T, lowercase, bizsuccessin15.com/cat, and grab your 3 steps to maximize your follow-ups. It's great. You can use it on any of the social media, and follow-ups is where it's really at. So many people don't build relationships online, and really and truly, that's why we all get online, is because we want to build relationships, but we don't want to start them. And and that's where that's the big thing that can really turn your business around. And Kat, do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Imperfect action is the thing that's always going to get you results, right? Don't overthink it. Even if you do it wrong, doing something is better than not. So go out there, be brave. And at the end of the day, people will buy from you when you show up as yourself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love that. Thank you so much, Kat, for being my guest today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
To our listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, feel free to share it with your friends. You want to visit bizsuccessin15.com/cat, and you're going to find any links from today's show. You'll also be able to re-listen to Kat's words of wisdom and catch up on any past episodes from other top experts. And while you're there, be sure to grab your 3 steps to maximize your follow-ups and start following up today. Big hugs, and be sure to tune in next week for Biz Success in 15 with another great guest. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.